Reiterate this. You need to get your character in, and here's the reason why. You answer all the quizzes. I don't think there are 15 quizzes, chapter quizzes. Oh, yes, there are. That's 150 points. If you don't have a character, you really don't have a topic for your library paper, but go ahead and do one anyway. That's 100 points. You answered your discussion questions. There's 10 points per. That's about 120 points. That's 370 points out of a possible 520. You don't do your fictional biography, of course. That's minus 50 points, and if you don't do your counseling sessions, that's minus 100 points. That's 350. That's almost a passing grade. Pretty close to a passing grade. Here's your character history form right here on the assignments page. And here are all the things you're supposed to cover in your counseling sessions. In the past, we have gone to history evaluations, but we only have 3, so that's not going to cover 31 people. I think we had 31. Oh, we started out with 31 anyway. Okay, so you need to get your character histories in. We're going to start after vacation, after spring break. We should be done by then, and we can go ahead and get started with the counseling sessions. Strangely, of course, we only have 3, and we need more than that. Those 3 people can counsel each other. You don't have to do a different one every week, a different person, or a different person every time you counsel. But those are the requirements of the class. You can put them in the Dropbox if you like, your character histories, or email them to me. That works best. That way I can get them up as soon as you send them in to me. So just email me your character histories. This is what the form looks like. Let me go ahead and call that up. Whoops. Character histories. This is what the form looks like. It's a DOC. It's a DOC form, so you can fill it out. You can type it out. Billy Bob. Billy Bob. There we go. Put that away. There we go. Okay. And he's a male. There we go. Anyway, okay. So, Billy Bob's, what's his problem? What is his problem? He's a drinker. Anyway, there you go. Don't save. There we go. Okay, so that's how you do it. Not that difficult. Takes not that much time. You just need to decide what your problem is, what problem you're going to be dealing with. A lot of people get into psychology because of a select problem. This is a good way of dealing with another problem, a potential problem that you will not have in the future, of course. But I keep telling you the story of the young lady that thought she was going to be a counselor and got into counseling session, or got into counseling and realized she had so many problems that she couldn't possibly become a counselor because she would be constantly trying to deal with her own problems. That's just the way it works. So let's go ahead and get started with today's lecture. We're going to cover 12 and 13, chapters 12 and 13 today. Identifying key problems or challenges. Let's go ahead. There we go. Understanding the client's problems. This can be complicated, of course. A lot of times they tell you one thing and really their problem is something totally different. The process of coming to an agreement on problems and goals involves a thoughtful and complete assessment. It is important to work on what the client is ready to solve, not what the practitioner might think is important. And And that is tough. That's really tough. Because you may see their problem as one thing, and they don't want to work on that one thing. They may have an abusive spouse, but they don't want to work on the abusive spouse. They want to work on their own anxiety. And you're thinking, of course, we could deal with the abusive spouse, then possibly the anxiety would go away. That's not the way it works. You got to work on what the client is ready to work on. If they don't want to talk about their spouse, they don't want to talk about their spouse. Problem exploration. What is the extent of your problem? How is the problem affecting your life? How long has this problem been in existence? How frequently does this problem happen, and how bad does it get? What's the cause of your problem? How are you living in an environment that will allow the problem to return? Is the problem worse because you haven't dealt with it and you don't have any hair? Is this a superficial problem or one that goes deeper, requiring extensive therapy? How urgent is it that the problem be solved? Is it possible that this problem is a symptom of a more serious problem? And of course, that is a very common question. She's got a Fruit Loops bracelet. That's kind of cool. Considerations of any problem include financial remuneration, client time constraints, and practitioner time constraints. Financial remuneration, they've got to pay you for every time they come in to talk to you. Client time constraints, everybody's time is their own. If they're working and they only have a select amount of time, that can be difficult, especially if that's not when you are free. The practitioner might have to act without fully exploring all problems due to crisis situation, and or crisis status. So, and this is normally what happens in emergency room situations, like I've been in. A lot of times you're trying to put out the fire. You're just trying to put out the fire, and then you move to something else. Then potentially once the fire is put out, then you can go to something else. So you're constantly in crisis, in a catastrophe, trying to get the client to deal with their problems. The immediate crisis situation will have to be dealt with first before you can address any other problems. Like I said, the abusive spouse may be a problem. But the first thing we need to do is get the individual off of suicide watch. The practitioner may have to be more directive, and this is the one time that you get to be directive. Normally, you follow the client's lead, but sometimes you have to tell them what to do, and this is one of those situations. Some people are good at it, and some people aren't very good at it. Some people are great counselors. They're really good counselors, but they can't tell people what to do. They don't have that in them to direct people. They're really good listeners, but they're not good tellers. Crisis situations dealing with interpersonal violence would include murder. Crisis situations dealing with interpersonal violence would include rape. It would include terrorist bombings. Natural disasters would include crisis situations dealing with major natural disasters would include floods, which is what they had in California recently. It would include tornadoes, which is what we have up here. It would include house fires. Or fires like they had in California where they burned up so many houses, the forest fires. And forest fires in New Mexico and Arizona over the last couple of years. Or the one that was in Australia. My goodness. Crisis situations dealing with major natural disasters would include hurricanes. You don't have to worry about that very much in Arizona and New Mexico, but this is something that is very, very common in Florida, along the Gulf Coast, and along the Atlantic coast. Strangely, typhoons don't hit the West Coast very often, but when we were in Japan, we were hit by several typhoons. Crisis situations dealing with personal loss would include unexpected death of a family member, sudden abandonment of a significant other. It is important to stay calm and remember that safety is the first priority, always the first priority. Use skills of listening, asking questions for clarification, express empathy, and express warmth. And this is what you do when you're working in the emergency room. Seek supervision as soon as possible. You're very often in that kind of a situation, you're dealing with a crisis situation that potentially you've never seen before, or potentially goes beyond your expertise, but you have to deal with it anyway. And the one thing that you want to do is make sure that the client is okay. Clients do not see any need to make a change. Working with clients, pre-contemplation stage, the client doesn't see any need to make a change. They do not see their behaviors or feelings as problems. They blame others for their problem. Moving from something clients cannot change to something they can improves efficacy. Empathy about problems that are out of the client's control is necessary. If the client states that her boss is unfair to her, the practitioner might see her part of the problem as their inability to figure out what she can do to be treated more fairly. The practitioner isn't denying that the client has a problem, merely pointing out the portion of the problem that the client can control. And frequently in jobs, it's a question of control. And bosses who feel like they don't have as much control might try to overly control their subordinates. If the client states that the problem is the city's failure to adequately maintain their neighborhood, the practitioner might help the clients to see their part of the problem as their lack of information about how to effectively lobby for services. If a mother is upset because her son is doing poorly in school and wants to make him bring up his grades, the practitioner will accept this as a valid concern and work with the mother to figure out what she wants to change about herself. The mother may be focusing too much on what the child is not doing or may not have encouraged him. She may not have discussed the problem with his teachers. If the client is a young single mother of 3 children who states that she doesn't have enough money for food and housing, even though she works full-time, the practitioner can work with her on her desire for more income so that she can better provide for her family and can tell her about whatever additional resources might be available to help her provide for her family. We're still in the pre-contemplation stage. Motivational interviewing can be very helpful. Motivational interviewing is client-centered counseling that helps clients increase motivation by assisting them in exploring and resolving ambivalence about making changes. Rolling with resistance, clients have valid insights and ideas about their situation. Arguments for change are avoided by clients. The practitioner indicates a willingness to work on the problem identified by the client. Resistance often arises when the client is required to see the practitioner. And of course, nobody likes to see a counselor. A motivational interviewing strategy that involves pointing out an incongruity between the client's present behavior and something they value or want. This may increase clients' motivation to change. The goal is to move the client to contemplating that there is a problem that they can work on. Identifying discrepancies. There's a readiness to believe there is a problem. Okay, so we're in the contemplation stage. Now there's a readiness to believe there is a problem. The client can acknowledge the advantages of changing, but is also aware of the costs. The counselor needs to express empathy. It's important at all stages of change to show them that you are are attempting to understand their feelings. This provides acceptance, of course. Contemplation stage. I know that you know that your drinking is a problem, but right now stopping seems impossible. I understand that you think it would improve your health if you gave up smoking, but that giving up smoking feels almost impossible, especially when you're smoking a whole pack at a time. Contemplation state, advanced reflecting. Client's perspective is essential, of course. Identifying values, meanings, feelings, and expectations. Expressions need to be stated tentatively. The purpose is to invite the client to have insight, self-awareness, and/or a deeper understanding of his or her situation. Advanced reflecting, it seems like you feel angry because you value communication, and he doesn't. You have moved from focusing on the client's husband to identifying what the client values. It sounds like you feel angry because you expect clear directions from your boss. Without clear directions, you feel afraid of making mistakes. You've moved from focusing on the boss to focusing on the client's need for clarification. It seems like you value open communication and haven't found a way to invite other members of this group to share openly, moving from focusing on what the client thinks is wrong with the other group members to focusing on what the client values. I hear that you're frustrated and think this group isn't accomplishing enough. It seems like you really want this task group to do well, moving from focusing on what the client is frustrated about and what the client wants. It seems that several folks in this agency are feeling impatient because the needs of the growing Hispanic population are not being adequately addressed by the agency. It sounds like addressing the needs of the Hispanic population is something many of you value and think is important. You've moved from focusing on what is wrong with the services at the agency to what the people in the agency value. I'm wondering if you feel like you aren't getting much recognition at work. Being valued for your contribution seems to be important to your job satisfaction, moving from what the people at work aren't giving the client to what the client wants. I have the feeling that the group really wants to deal with this issue, but you are afraid of hurting one another's feelings, moving from what the group members are afraid of to what they want. It seems like you folks in the neighborhood really want to get this problem solved, but are feeling pretty discouraged right now because the process seems difficult, moving from how hard the process is to what the people want. The contemplation stage themes may be related to interacting, behaving, thinking, and/or feeling. Seeing patterns can help clients to make changes. A theme is an idea or a point of view shared by several people. A pattern refers to consistent ways of thinking, feeling, or behaving. Identifying patterns and themes. A pattern might be related to how a client tries to escape, to run away, or to use some self-defeating behavior. The practitioner can ask about the possible connections between problems and thoughts, feelings, ways of coping, and other situations. It is particularly powerful to relate themes and patterns to clients' experience of what is happening in his/her relationship with the practitioner. Clients can begin to identify the roles and problems. So partializing, now we're partializing. Clients can begin to identify their roles and problems and begin to set goals. It is important to state and restate goals until both client and practitioner are clear about them. Partializing involves breaking a complex problem into manageable parts. Practitioner and client can decide which part of the problem should be dealt with first. This may be the easiest, the most painful, or one that can lead to the solvability of other aspects of the larger problem. It is important to remember that the client's perception of what is manageable may be smaller than or different than the practitioner might see as possible. Supporting self-efficacy, encouragement given to clients that they can solve problems. You got this. The goal is to enhance clients' confidence and capability to cope. Statements that recognize what the clients have already accomplished and identifies their strengths can support their belief in themselves. Problem identification concerns aiding the clients identifying problems clearly. In larger systems and families, different members may understand problems differently. Clients often think of problems as something to stop. They need to change to what they want to start doing, not what they want to stop doing. Ethical considerations in problem identification. Practitioners need to support essential ethical principles related to autonomy and self-determination. Client decisions are influenced by culture, gender, age, and other factors. The practitioner's role is to support choices of clients, even if they feel they should make other choices. And that is the end of chapter 12. Let me get rid of this. There we go. Oh, okay. Well, let's start with chapter 13. Establishing goals. Establishing goals, your name right there. Okay. Identifying general goals. Goals set the direction of work to be done. Clear goals are necessary in planning steps to be taken. They are what clients hope to achieve working with the practitioner. They are the client's vision of what life would be like if their problems were solved. Goals must be mutually established between practitioners and clients. Practitioners should not try to guide clients. Satisfactory work depends on practitioners' ability to collaborate with the client. Questions that seek clarification help clients figure out what goals they are motivated to achieve. Exception-finding questions are useful. Explore times when the problem was not present. Times when the problem was smaller or less problematic. Open-ended questions at the end of our work today together. What do you want your life to be like? When the problems that brought you here are solved, what do you want to be thinking, doing, or feeling? When we have finished our work together, what might other people see you doing that you aren't doing now? Tell me about the picture of what you want your family to be like. Popcorn eaters. Let's pretend that these problems are solved. What differences will you notice in your life? Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance even when it rains. There you go. Measurable and specific goals make it possible for clients and practitioners to evaluate changes that have been made. This is the identifying measurable, attainable, positive, and specific goals. This is the MAPS program. It's something that they suggest. I've never used the MAPS program. It's in the book, and that's the reason I'm presenting it. It is just a way of putting things together. You can do it any way that you want. MAPS does work. I assume it works. Like I said, I've never used it before. But it's a good way of putting things together, as I said. Make it possible, so the measurable and specific goals makes it possible for clients and practitioners to evaluate changes that have been made. It provides a clear direction and focus for work. A lot of this My problem with some of the things they tell us to do in the textbook is that it's too uniform. It's as if they are acting as if everything's always the same, and the reality is just about every client you meet are going to be different from the next client that you meet. If you think that every time you're dealing with an abusive spouse, it's going to be you're going to be able to deal with it in the same manner, that is probably completely erroneous. You're going to have to change the way you look at things, change the way you do things with every client. Unfortunately, it would be nice if everything was formulaic and ritualized. It just doesn't work out that way. You know, yeah, it just doesn't work out. You can think of it in the same manner, but eventually everything's going to be different from one case to the next. Okay, so we're dealing with the MAPS program. Will you give me an example of what positive communication sounds like to you? When you have positive communication, what will you be doing that you weren't doing now? In what situations do you want to have more positive communication? I want to get better grades, so I will write down each assignment I get this week. So this is what the client is doing. I want to lose weight, so I will go to the gym 3 times this week. I want to become sober, so I will attend 1 AA meeting this week. I want more friends, so I will sit next to 2 different people in each of my classes. Attainable goals. A goal needs to be something the client believes is possible based on available resources such as time, money, and people power. Establishing a series of small goals helps clients experience success. It is important that the size of the goal seems attainable to a client and reasonable to the practitioner. A lot of times, clients will want to make these huge steps forward. The reality is yeah, okay, maybe you can do this one time, but continuing on these giant steps will be almost impossible. So what you need to do is baby steps. You need to get them to do small things before they do big things. Before they need to attend 1 AA meeting a week before they decide to go every night. Going every night, things aren't going to work out. They're going to get tired on Thursday night and not make it on Friday or something, and then they're going to go drinking on Friday night. That's the point I'm trying to make. You need to take baby steps, and then well, it's like me trying to run on the treadmill. One day I'll be going 6 miles per hour, and the next day I want to go 6.1 miles per hour, and then the day after that 6.2 miles per hour. But I'm not used to that. I need to work in incrementally. So 6.1 for 1 week, 6.2 for the next week, that kind of thing. Baby steps, baby steps. That's the only way it works. Attainable goals. A goal needs to be something the client believes is possible based on available resources. I think that we've already talked about that. Attainable goals involve changing another person. Time to reach the goal must be relatively proximate to the decision to change. Clients who participate in setting goals are more likely to believe goals are achievable. Goals should be visualized in concrete, specific behavioral terms. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. It needs to be concrete. Your goal is to lose 15 pounds. Would it be reasonable to lose 1.5 pounds this week? Your goal is to turn your homework in on time. Would it be reasonable to set aside an hour an evening to do homework for this class? Your goal is to attend AA meetings. Would it be reasonable to acquire a list of local meetings this week? I hear that you want to weigh what you weighed when you were 30 years old. Let's consider just setting a goal that you can successfully reach in a shorter period of time. What do you think it would be? What do you think would be a reasonable and not too hard goal to reach in 2 months? I agree that giving up drinking and going to AA meetings every day is a terrific goal. AA is very good at celebrating each milestone in the process to lifetime sobriety. How about if one of our first goals is going to AA every day for 2 weeks? Does that sound okay to you? It sounds like your group was disappointed in your grade and on the big project, and you were determined to start earlier on the next big project. That sounds like a plan that will work. The next project is due 6 weeks from now. What goal would you like to achieve 3 weeks from now related to that project? So the two of you often argue about how to discipline the children and think it would be better if you agreed on discipline methods. That sounds like a good goal to achieve. Since you disagree on many aspects of discipline, would it make sense to you to start with the goal of coming to an agreement about what to do when Anne won't spend time on her homework? In this town, you have many people who are homeless, and you want to develop a solution to the problem that will be acceptable to the city council and also to the people who are homeless. I wonder if the first goal might be to create a group of people, including some people who are homeless and some of you who are willing to work on this problem. Positive goals keeps the focus on what the client wants to do rather than what the client doesn't want to do. Practitioners can use open-ended questions to help clients to think in positive terms. I want to lose weight, so today I will eat at least 2 servings of fruit. I want to turn my homework in on time, so today I will review all the work I need to turn in this week. I want to make 2 new friends, so today I will say hi to 5 people. If one night at dinner you weren't fighting, what do you think you might be doing? If one day you felt the urge to drink but didn't drink, what would you do instead? What is your vision of what the neighborhood would be like without drug dealers? When you are concerned about how things are going in the group, how would you like to talk to each other about your concerns or hopes? If this agency was functioning in a way that you believe would be effective, what would people be doing that they aren't doing now? Short-term goal, this week I will go to class and write down my homework assignments. Long-term goal, this semester I will raise my grades 1 level. Short-term goal, this week I will speak with 3 new people. Long-term goal, this semester I will make 2 new friends. Moving from general to specific goals, practitioners may decide to approach agreement on problems and goals differently. Some practitioners prefer more general goals. Working on one goal often relates to other goals. Many practitioners find it helpful to establish a written or verbal agreement that describes previous understandings between them and the client. These agreements are developed collaboratively and can be modified as necessary. A good alliance involves a safe, trusting, comfortable, collaborative relationship. It includes an agreement between the practitioner and the client about the goals. These set the stage for monitoring work together. This is like a contract. I've never done this. Like I said before, I've never used the MAPS program, and I've never written contracts with my clients. But sometimes you wish you could. Sometimes you wish you could write contracts with your students to make sure they're going to get their histories in on time. There are many valid and reliable scales for measuring the alliance. There are also scales for measuring the outcome of the session or series of sessions with clients. This is something that I do every time I have a counseling session. One of the things I do, I try to figure out whether things went well or whether things didn't go well. I rate them on a 1 to 10 scale. On a 1 to 10, that was a ugh. And then I try to figure out what I can do to make it better. Of course I always blame the client, but what can I do to get the client to come out of their shell? The goal attainment scale is a 5-point scale that ranges from most to least favorable outcomes that client believes are possible. It can be used to identify the level of progress achieved either during the course of work together or at the end. Using the GAS for each MAPS goal can be helpful. GAS is the goal attainment scale, GAS. This week I will eat 2 servings of fruit each day. Next week I will make an appointment to join a gym. The following week I will attend the gym 3 exercise classes and 3 exercise classes. The next week I will continue at the gym and eating fruit and weigh myself to see if I have lost any weight. If not, I will join Weight Watchers, etc. And that is that. So get your character histories in so that you can start counseling in a couple weeks. Actually, it's right after vacation. The last weeks of the end of March or the beginning of April, we'll start counseling. So I'll see you next week. We only have 2 more chapters to go.